So I hope you can all hear me. A big thank you to Cyrus Smith for leading us in a guided meditation break. My name is Ben Schwartz, and I'm a second-year medical student at Stanford and also a member of the Forum Leadership Committee. We will now be transitioning into our last activity for the day of interactive polling. Please visit pollev.com if you haven't already. Our first question is, what does intersectionality mean to you? So I'm seeing a few responses come in, and I'll wait a little bit more for some more to come in. I see inclusion, intentionality, recognizing that people are comprised of many different facets and backgrounds. Convergence of experiences. I think that's a really important thing that we've talked on today. Recognizing how so many of our identities manifest at different planes, interpersonally, institutionally, societally. Someone wrote me, and I think that's a really valid response. I think that one hope for today is really that we can all look and see what kinds of intersectionality we identify with and how that's a part of our lives. Seeing the whole person, absolutely important. I think a lot of these ideas really reflect how creating change centers on policies and behaviors like we've talked about in the different sessions today. Intersectionality, cares about action and change, not blame. By tethering our focus, especially at Stanford, to intersectionality through policies and behavioral shifts and outcomes, we can start to make progress there. Taking into account all of a person's life experiences. I think that's another really valid answer that's been suggested here. Intentionality. I think that's something too that we can highlight and discuss. When I think about what intentionality means, I think about going into a situation or into a circumstance or into a context and knowing exactly what I'm there to do. And I hope that that connection to intersectionality is also really clear. We can only really prioritize intersectionality in our spaces, including at Stanford, by understanding its importance and its impact. And so definitely being very intentional about it. I'm also seeing something, I think it's a little cut off, but not just acknowledging, but actively uplifting the voices of marginalized people and of marginalized communities. It's one thing to pay lip service to those communities and individuals, and it's another thing to provide them with the tools and support them and implement stable and safe frameworks for people to sort of, as was said earlier, not just to provide a seat at the table, but for people to build their own table. I think that's a really valid point. I think I'll just, before I hand it off to Stephanie for the next PolEV question, thank you all for these wonderful answers. I think that, again, recognizing everyone as an individual comprised of many experiences and backgrounds, I think that just sums it up right there. And I hope that, certainly from today's sessions and panels, from the voices of our keynote speaker and from our panelists, that belief is really made. So I'll pass it off to Stephanie now for the next PolEV question.
All right, thank you. So our next PolEV question is, how can we center BIPOC in our community? So if you can go to pollev/LGBTQ Forum again. So paying for them, I think that's been a theme tonight, compensating them for their time. And also, I think part of that is not just compensating for their time, but also being very conscious of their time, that the work that they do, the information they share is giving back to us. It is something, it's a gift that they are giving us. And so it is therefore worth pay. It's worth acknowledging. Listening, always. I think actually listening, it seems very simple. There's a difference between hearing what somebody is saying and actually listening and having a better understanding of what that means, and listening to what they're actually saying and what they need. I've heard a lot of my students and trainees and colleagues say lately, stop asking me what I need. I've been telling you. So start listening. Let's see here. Recognizing emotional labor. Again, yeah, recognizing that this is emotional labor, that it is tough. The more we ask, the more we put on our most vulnerable community members, the more difficult it becomes. Being held accountable, taking responsibility to learn, I think is a very important piece. Rethinking culture. I think that goes back to something that we were talking about earlier, which was what is business as usual? And is that how we want it to be? And how do we change up business as usual? I think also too, the rethinking our culture has a lot to do with what we take for granted and what we assume to be okay, and not questioning that. All right, so we want to add okay. In educating allies, that's actually true. Well, educating people who want to be allies, helping them become co-conspirators, perhaps, moving from the ally piece to understanding actually what that means. Okay. We want to add a couple more. I think we're slowing down. All right. Okay. All right, thank you. So here we have a few themes here in terms of how we center BIPOC in our community, rethinking the culture, really being a part of changing that culture, recognizing that this is emotional labor, and that it is something, it is our responsibility to do some heavy work as well to educate ourselves and take responsibility, and then compensating our BIPOC community members for their time and labor, and then trying to work towards from allyship to say co-conspiratorship. All right, thank you. So I think now we are moving on to our next question, which, and I think, I believe Anthony is taking over from there. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Stephanie. So our last poll EV, and I hope everyone's still on the same page for our pollev.com/LGBTQ Forum. And in one word, what should next year's theme be? Accountability, that's good. I see outcomes. Transness, together. Action, that's a good one. Revolution, recovery, progress. Belonging. Equity, resilience. 3 emoji hearts. I like that one too. see, tokenization, justice. Community building. I see a lot of themes towards action and kind of more mobilization of our community, which I think is great. More like revolution, action. Let's see. I think it's kind of slowing down a bit. Yes, thank you all for your input, and this we really take this into account when we plan next year's theme. I just want to thank everyone for their words, and I'm just going to turn it over to Ben for his closing remarks.
Thanks so much, Stephanie and Anthony, for that really lovely moderation of those questions. So in closing, we want to thank those who made this event possible, including the LGBTQ Forum Leadership Committee, especially our fearless leaders, Shayla Quitadia and Barbara Jerome, as well as our sponsors, the Office of Faculty Development and Diversity, Stanford Healthcare, Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, and the Stanford Medicine Alumni Association. Finally, we want to thank all of our participants, all of you, for joining us today. It is our hope that you all derived meaning, learning, fulfillment, inspiration from today's sessions, albeit being in a virtual format, and that from the speeches, the sessions, and the panels, you are now equipped with the tools needed to work together and make Stanford Medicine and your own communities as inclusive and welcoming for the LGBTQ community as we possibly can. So on that note, thank you so much.